sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Yolo County. I'm Michelle Famula, President of the League of Women Voters of Yolo County. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 in Chicago, 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified and women won the vote. Formed by suffragists, the League began as a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million newly enfranchised women carry out their new responsibilities as voters. As part of our voter education programs, we sponsor candidate forums like this. Our forums are structured according to the guidelines established by the League of Women Voters of California to promote fairness and civil discourse. Our League thanks all attendees for joining us this evening. We recognize that these are challenging times with many divergent perspectives and ask that everyone here tonight treat each other with respect and appreciation. We value everyone's beliefs and opinions and require that all dialogue and action be constructive. Anyone displaying disruptive or disrespectful behavior may be asked to leave. Tonight's forum is being broadcast on Channel 21 by Woodland TV, as well as being live streamed on their YouTube page. This event is also being recorded and will be available for viewing online until after Election Day on June 2nd. Tonight's forum features the 3 candidates running for the Board of Supervisors in District 3. Seated on your left is Dottie Pritchard. In the center is Yolo Rodriguez, and on the right is Myra Vega. They will each have an opportunity to tell you about themselves and their candidacy, and will respond to questions from both the league and the audience. District 3 is shown on the map on the handout you received at the door. It is the green area and includes most of the part of Woodland that is south of Main Street. It also includes rural areas to the west of Woodland, south to County Road 29, and southeast to the Sacramento River. You can find which Board of Supervisors district you live in by going to the Yolo County Board of Supervisors website and entering your address in the interactive map. The moderator for tonight's forum is Zachariah Okinda, a member of the League of Women Voters of Yolo County. I'd like to turn it over to Zachariah.
Thank you, Michelle. Welcome to the candidates and to the public. Our forum will follow this format. Each candidate will give a 1.5-minute opening statement. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to 4 questions drafted by members of the Yolo County League and approved by the board. The order of the candidates' responses will rotate. Our timekeeper, Judy Wolfram, will advise candidates for 15 seconds remain and when their time is ended. This will be followed by written audience questions, which will be screened and prioritized by the League of Women Voters volunteers to avoid duplication and ensure a range of topics and issues. Candidates will each have 1.25 minutes to respond to audience questions. Following questions, candidates will be given 1.5 minutes for closing statements. To close, the moderator will also make some brief remarks after. Please refrain from applauding or in any way demonstrating support or non-support for any candidate until the end of the forum. Attendees causing disruption will be asked to leave. At the end of the forum, we will ask for applause for all candidates. We also ask you to please silence any devices you may have with you and not take photographs. You received a card as you entered with the guidelines for written questions written on the back. Please submit questions that apply to all candidates and are related to the Office of County Supervisor. Our questions sorting team will combine duplicates and eliminate inappropriate questions, including negative remarks, rude language, or personal attacks. When you have completed writing your question, please pass it to the aisle where volunteers will collect questions until approximately 7:43. We'll see if we hit that time mark. Now, for the candidates' opening statements, starting with Vega and Pritchard.
Can everybody hear me? My goodness, thank
thank you all for coming out. It's such a large crowd, we should have sold tickets. Thank you all, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and Woodland TV, and everybody at home watching. I am a public servant, and it has been the greatest job I have ever had. I have served as the 3rd District Supervisor's Deputy under 3 supervisors for the last 20 years, and as their Chief of Staff. County government is large and complex, and is not something that you can learn overnight. It takes time to understand and learn to truly how to help people. So I understand not just the challenges, but how decisions are made at the county level and how to move them forward effectively. I was born and raised in Woodland, come from a long family of generational people that have been here since the 1800s, and I decided to run because I cared deeply about Yolo County and our community. And I believe my experience, my knowledge, my longevity will be an asset, especially in these large, hard times. We will all have the same focuses, but in the end, you have to know about the county to be able to work effectively for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Commissioner Rodriguez.
Good evening and thank you. I am Xochitl Rodriguez. I'm here as an Army veteran, a wife and daughter of retired farm workers. I'm here as your next supervisor, folks, representing Woodland, Brighton, Broderick, and rural Yolo County. I believe that I am the change Yolo County deserves. I will work diligently to prioritize a balanced budget that respects your tax dollars, emergency response and public safety funding, and the protection of our agricultural farmland, as well as environmental sustainability and housing solutions for all. As former mayor and Veterans Deputy Secretary, I bring a multifaceted approach of working with diverse communities throughout California. I bring a fresh perspective, and I will be a supervisor who meets you where you are and provides a platform to voice your concerns. Buenas tardes, noches. Soy Xochitl Rodriguez. Soy veterana del ejército, esposa e hija de trabajadores campesinos. Estoy aquí como su próxima supervisora, representando a Woodland, Brighton, Broderick, West Sacramento y nuestras áreas rurales. Yo represento el cambio que nuestro condado merece. Yo trabajaré para priorizar un presupuesto equilibrado que respete sus impuestos, servicios de emergencia y de seguridad pública, nuestra agricultura y protección de nuestras tierras, tanto como nuestro medio ambiente y nuestra reserva de agua y viviendas para todos. Como exalcaldesa y subsecretaria del Departamento de Veteranos, cuento con experiencia trabajando con diversas comunidades a través de California. Ofrezco una perspectiva nueva y renovada y ser una supervisora accesible a usted y su familia. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to Myra Vega.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to the League for hosting this forum. I'm Myra Vega, and I'm running for Yolo County Supervisor. It's been the honor of my life to serve as a Woodland City Council member for 2 terms now. I'm a small business owner, a mother, and I bring over 20 years of experience in healthcare, where I've worked to provide communities with access to healthcare, particularly those living in rural areas. I'm running because I love this community, and I believe experienced leadership matters, especially at a time with Yolo County facing serious challenges. We're facing a structural budget deficit, rising housing costs, and gaps in access to healthcare and mental health care services. These are complex issues that require thoughtful, disciplined leadership. On the City Council, I focus on delivering real results, strengthening public safety, advancing housing solutions, and supporting local businesses. Very important is investing in infrastructure and services that serve youth and working families. Yolo County is a special place. Brighton, Broderick, Woodland, and our rural communities. All of these communities have shared values. We want safe neighborhoods. We want to be able to live in peace and in community and ensure that everybody has a voice and is well represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to the questions from the League of Women Voters. As a reminder, these questions will be 1 minute and 30-second time to answer. The first question is, how will you prioritize essential county services considering Yolo County's growing budget deficit and rising costs? And because the answers are rotating, Ms. Rodriguez will go first.
Thank you once again. I appreciate all the planning that went into this. And to everyone who's here today, thank you for being here. In full disclosure, the questions will only be in English, but I am happy to do a segment after in Spanish on social media. I will prioritize essential services by working with my colleagues on the board to identify which services are most crucial to our families. We can cut low utilization programs by reviewing what worked in the last budget cycle, then shifting to meet our community's needs. There are certain cuts in the county that we must maintain, including legally mandated ones. These are largely tied to public safety. And then when you're looking at health and human services, there's a lot of those that come with state and federal mandates as well tied to them. So it's not easy to just take the budget and say we're going to cut 15% across the board in each department. I will focus on supporting prevention programs and social services such as Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and CalWorks. Our families are struggling with affordability, so my priority will be to ensure that we can provide food security, medical services, and supporting our workforce. My understanding is that our departments were recently asked to cut 15% of their budget, and as I said earlier, all of our services differ across the board, right? Our current budget is about $758.3 million, and so the largest share goes to health and human services. I'm running out of time, folks, but what I want to say is that we want to make sure that our families can afford to put food on the table, can afford to provide, to pay the rent, and be able to provide child care services as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Vega.
Thank you. Yolo County is facing a structural budget challenge, as we've mentioned. The latest projection is a $35 million shortfall. That is a significant figure that is not going to be made up simply by cuts. In the past, we've relied on one-time funding sources like reserves and federal dollars, and those are not sustainable long-term. So the question is not whether we'll prioritize, is how we'll do it. My approach is to protect core services first. That includes public safety, health and human services, and programs that support our most vulnerable communities. We serve over 220,000 residents in this community, and we have an obligation to ensure that those who depend on these services are not left behind. I bring over 6 years of experience on the Woodland City Council, where I've worked on complex budgets and made decisions that balance fiscal responsibility and deliver results to those that most need it. Looking ahead, we need to strengthen our long-term financial planning. We need to continue to develop multi-year budgets and also come up with opportunities that are revenue generating. We must also build a culture of continuous improvement in county government. It is no secret that there are concerns over whether or not government is efficient and doing the right thing to meet the services. That means regularly reviewing program outcomes, making data-driven decisions, and being willing to sunset programs that are no longer serving the needs. Thank you.
And Ms. Pritchard.
The budget. This is one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now, and it really comes down to setting priorities. For me, that starts with protecting essential county services, public safety, health and human services, including food access and mental health services, and support for our most vulnerable residents. Those are our core county responsibilities, and many of them are mandated, and they have to come first. That also means we have to be realistic. In a tight budget, we may not be able to fund everything we would want to, and we have to focus on what the county is required to provide and what our communities rely on the most. I also think it's important that we address these challenges directly. If we delay difficult decisions, we risk making the situation worse. The county has already recognized that we're likely facing budget pressures for several years,
so we need to plan accordingly and act thoughtfully now. At the end of the day, it's about being responsible with the public funds and focusing on the services that matter the most.
Thank you. The second question, Ms. Vega, you will go first. The second question is, how would you work to find a balance between development and preserving agricultural and natural land in Yolo County?
Thank you. Yolo County's ag land is one of our greatest assets, and protecting it must be a priority. And at the same time, we need to plan for our growing communities. This community deserves to have accessible housing so that our children and our seniors have a place to go. Get some music, I like that background music. We need a full continuum of housing so young people can purchase a first home, they can stay in the community and have multi-generational housing. One of the things that I love about Yolo County is how we have grandparents, parents, and youth living all in the neighborhood. That's really important, and that only happens if we have accessible housing so that everybody can have a chance at home ownership, and as they move on to their golden years, be able to retire in place in dignity with their family. This requires a balanced approach, and this comes from responsible land use planning, collaboration with our farmers, our cities, and developers. And it means on focusing development within our existing cities and looking at creative infill development and preserving farmland and open space. It's not an easy task. And making these land use decisions that are going to impact the community long term is something that I have worked and have experience with as a city council member. We can meet our housing needs while preserving the land and resources that define Yolo County.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchard?
This is a critical issue for Yolo County because agriculture isn't part of our economy. It is part of our way of life. For me, balance starts with protecting our prime farmland and natural open spaces. Development on that land is something that we just can't do. Once it's gone, it's gone. And we have to be responsible to preserve it for our future generations. At the same time, we know our communities are growing. In Woodland, the community recognized this years ago with the urban limit line, making a conscious decision to guide growth inward, protect our farmland, and avoid impacts of sprawl. So growth needs to be thoughtful. That means focusing on infill, redevelopment, and making better use of the land we already have rather than expanding to farmland. And it also means closely working with our cities. They make many of the development decisions, but the county plays a key role in land use planning and in protecting our agriculture resources. It's about making responsible decisions that allow for growth while preserving what makes Yolo County unique.
Ms. Rodriguez?
As this task will take collaboration, I will work with stakeholders, including our Farm Bureau, on new development proposals to ensure growth is steered towards low quality soils so that we don't disrupt our good soils and promote infill opportunities where possible. New development should not target prime agricultural soils. We already have conservation easements through the Yolo Land Trust, and the city's general plans are committed to preserving agriculture. When looking at future development tied to flood protection proposals, I will ensure that we have community stakeholders at the table. The expectation of community members and farmers is that development does not infringe on their farms or compromise the protection of farm workers. For our urban communities, our neighbors in Woodland have held our local government accountable for delivering promised services like schools and a fire station, prior to us seeking their approval for more development, as seen through the outcome of Measure M. In West Sacramento, Brett and Broderick, they want to see the already planned development in the northeast part of the city and their projects completed. They also are looking at completing their streets. There's a need for sidewalks. As a supervisor, I plan to lean in with our local government to find a way forward for delivering crucial services. Yolo County has some of the most prime agricultural land in the country, even the world. Because of this land, we can have agri-research projects at notable facilities like UC Davis. That said, our county needs more development to accommodate the growing population, but we need to do so soundly, making sure we have greater developments throughout our county. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to the third question, and Ms. Pritchard, you'll go first. The third question is, what are 3 examples of climate change issues that Yolo County and Wintun Homeland face? Which climate change issues are you interested in addressing and why?
There are several ways we're seeing the impacts of climate change here in Yolo County and across the homeland of the Patwin people. One is water, longer periods of drought and increasing pressure on our groundwater supply. That affects our agriculture community, our residents, our long-term sustainability, and even our ability to respond to wildfires. We have to be mindful that drought conditions will return. Another is transportation. It's one of the largest sources of emissions, and it's an area where we need to continue looking at practical ways to reduce our impact, including encouraging greater use of public transportation and improving access, especially for our rural communities. We do love our cars, but we need to make the transition. The third is how we manage waste, and this is a special thing for me. As a liaison to the Integrated Waste and Advisory Committee, I see firsthand how important it is to expand recycling and reduce waste. It's also one of the areas where small changes by individuals can collectively make a big difference. The county's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan sets an ambitious goal of reaching carbon negative emissions by 2030. It's important that we work toward that goal while also focusing on what we can implement effectively, especially in challenging financial times.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Our growing population and day-to-day demands have greatly contributed to the overheating of our planet. This climate pressure has driven our increased demand for water and energy as well. I'm interested in tackling greenhouse gas emissions, drought and water scarcity, and wildfire risk and smoke exposure. Greenhouse gas emissions, as we know, are gases that are released into our atmosphere and that trap heat and warm our planet. So in our day-to-day lives, when we are driving to work, we're trying to find ways to get kids to school, to practice and whatnot. There's a demand to get things done quickly, right? And so those greenhouse gases add to our overall increase to our overheating planet. And with the demand in population, well, it doesn't get any better for us. And so I'm interested in finding ways to find viable means of transportation for our county. We have our Yolo County Transportation System, which has pushed for microtransit, but I think we need to do a better job of taking advantage of that as individuals. Our drought and water scarcity. With higher temperatures, of course, we are seeing long-term drought and reduced snowpack in the Sierra Nevada. This affects the flow of our water to our Sacramento River, and in turn, of course, limits our ability and access to water here locally. Our wildfire risk and smoke exposure, while we don't see so much of it right here now in Northern California, this affects us throughout the state. We saw our Paradise Fire back in the past and a collaborative effort to help mitigate those risks. Thank you for my time.
Ms. Vega?
There are many climate challenges impacting Yolo County and the Wintun homeland, and these are a few that I'm looking forward to working on as a supervisor. Water sustainability is of the most critical. It impacts our residents, our farms, and our businesses. If we don't protect our water supply, we put our communities and our economy at risk. That's why we need to invest in groundwater sustainability, conservation, and projects like aquifer storage and recovery. Extreme heat is another growing challenge. It affects public health, reduces worker productivity, disproportionately impacts farm workers and vulnerable populations who are essential to our local economy. For example, during extreme heat days, farm workers have to cut their day short and often have to go to the hospital for the side effects of being overexposed to heat. This puts a strain on them, on their families, and also our healthcare system. Transportation and emissions also play a role. It is important that we look at reducing vehicle miles traveled through better public transportation and active transportation infrastructure. If we connect people through reliable public transportation, we're going to expand access to communities that have long been left behind. That's rural communities, Brent Broderick, and other urban communities and neighborhoods that don't have access to reliable transportation. That is not just a climate issue, but it's also economic justice and upward mobility for everybody.
Thank you. We are moving right along ahead of schedule. Right here, there's going to be a 3-minute pause for last audience questions to be collected. Please pass your final questions to the aisle, where volunteers will be able to pick them up. We'll just take a few minutes right now. And also, just a reminder, if you want to take a few, you can make sure your cell phones are silenced just in case. Looks like everybody got their questions in? No stragglers. Okay, we can move on to question number 4. And Ms. Rodriguez, you're going to go first. The 4th question is, what steps, if any, would you take to ensure that individuals, including asylees, refugees, and survivors of trafficking, who are now being denied CalFresh, otherwise known as SNAP benefits, have resources to assist them, as well as all food insecure residents of Yolo County?
Thank you. Food insecurity is a real thing. As the board considers each year's budget, we should allow the transfer of funds within various departments to combat these particular issues. For example, refugees and trafficking aren't just a social or human services issue, it's also a public safety issue and potential court issue. Our department shouldn't work in silos, especially when it comes to the budget. We can use resources from numerous departments to solve a larger problem. And with that, when you look at utilization and who is being left out of the picture when it comes to these benefits. I will work closely with the services we provide in the county to assist refugees and survivors of human trafficking. We'll also use our networks that assist underserved communities, as many times these are entry points for victims. And that includes community groups like CommuniCare, the Colores, who work closely with our immigrant families, those safety nets that they find out in the community, whether it's finding them through family members, whether it's through our faith-based services. In Yolo County, we have services and folks out there to assist refugees and victims of human trafficking, including our very own Health and Human Services Agency and our Trafficking and Crime Victim Assistance Program. Empower Yolo, we hear Empower Yolo, who assists families and men and women as well who are facing domestic violence issues. So with that, this is a larger problem that I think we also have an opportunity to work with our state and federal legislators to ensure that we are capturing opportunities and funding at the federal and state level as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vega.
Thank you. Food insecurity is a serious issue in Yolo County, and it impacts families, seniors, and vulnerable populations. We got to see it during the pandemic when schools were shut down, and we learned that children did not have food because their only reliable meal was at school. We have a lot of partners here locally that are working on food insecurity. So the budget is not going to get any better. So we really need to lean into our partnership. So as a healthcare leader, I've worked on implementing and community health improvement plans. And what those do is they look at areas of disparities. And for food insecurity, for individuals that are not easily accessible by the government or have easy access to government, we need to lean into the community organizations that do a better job at serving them. Yolo Food Bank, CommuniCare, our Yolo Children's Alliance, empower Yolo, and faith-based organizations often do a better job at government because they understand the needs of the community members. They're in the community. So this is a matter of ensuring that there's awareness of the food services that are available and that we meet people where they are. And in our community, a lot of times this is better done by nonprofits. So as the county supervisor, I will ensure that we're making sure that we're supporting these nonprofits and helping with collaboration and coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchard.
I know to be more articulate, I should read my statement, but this really hits me at home. I don't know where our compassion is. Where is it gone when we're talking about food, feeding our people? Food insecurity is a serious issue in Yolo County, and nearly 1 in 3 households are struggling to access enough food. People don't believe that, but it is true, and we are higher than the state average. So when people lose access to programs like CalFresh, we have to make sure they still have support. With recent changes to CalFresh and ineligibility that took effect on April 1st, we know more people are going to need help, which makes this even more important. At the county level, we don't replace federal programs with CalFresh, but we play a critical role in making sure that people don't fall through the cracks by screening individuals for other programs that may qualify and connecting them to food resources. And here's a few steps that I will focus on. First, strengthening coordination with our community partners, our food bank, nonprofits, and service providers, so we have a strong network to meet immediate needs. Second, improve outreach and access. That means making sure people understand what resources are available, providing information in multiple languages, and helping connect individuals to services as quickly as possible. And third, supporting those partners through funding, collaboration, or reducing barriers so they can continue to serve people effectively. It's about making sure that no one falls through the cracks and that everyone in our community has access to the basic resources they need.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to questions submitted by the audience. Okay, give me 1 second. The first candidate to answer this question will be Ms. Vega. And I'll read the question for each candidate since you can't see it. All right. Audience question 1. How would you respond to flood protection measures protecting agricultural land, such as the last ballot measure, Measure M?
Thank you. So I supported Measure M, and I supported Measure M because of the significant flood risk that Woodland faces. So many of our disadvantaged communities are carrying the burden of paying for flood insurance. Measure M came about through many years of thoughtful planning and process and research. And it included working with the Army Corps of Engineers to balance out a project that would protect the communities that are affected by flood risk, significant flood risk, and our critical city infrastructure. And the balance and the conversations were around how do we balance protecting these communities and our city infrastructure to bring them out of the floodplain and also mitigate the impact on farms. There were some challenges, but I strongly believe in the work that our staff, our council did to ensure that the project that we came up with, that was Measure M, was the best outcome for everybody.
Ms. Pritchard, how would you respond to flood protection measures versus protecting agricultural land, such as the last ballot measure, Measure M?
Flood protection is very important in Yolo County, and there is truth in the fact that eventually the statistics say that Woodland will eventually flood, but I didn't think that Measure M was the way to go about. I am against any type of development on our farmland. Once it's gone, and we have to protect it. I also believe that if we had built that flood wall, we could have easily put the central north end into basically a bathtub. 76% of the 3rd and the 5th districts voted against this measure. I think that as a supervisor, we can get together with the cities and make sure that we find flood protection that works for everyone, but we can't do it at the sacrifice of our farmland.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I have faith that we will come to a compromise on flood protection. We saw Measure M, as you've heard, it did fail by 70% of the voters' vote. Now, I watched this closely when I was on the city council, went out to DC to advocate for this flood proposal. We were turned around because they said, we don't have the support of the farmers. So what's changed now? When we got to Measure M, that hadn't changed. And when I went back to our local leaders, I said, hey, you mentioned you've been working on this for 20 years, right? We've been working on this for 20 years. So why is it that our community is confused about this proposal? Why is it that Spring Lake isn't sure as to whether or not this is going to bring more development to the east? I grew up in Yolo, and folks try to bring the equity part to the table, and I said, no sir, no ma'am. I grew up there. And so I played in the ponds of water. I knew what it was to grow up in affordable housing, and I felt protected and I felt safe in my city. But there's no denying that we need flood protection. Now, our farmers have presented an option about repairing the current levee that we have. That is an option to look at. And the next time we bring in a flood proposal, let's make sure we're bringing in the community, and that absolutely that we have the endorsement of the Board of Supervisors, which was missing this last time around. Thank you.
Thank you. Audience question number 2. First to answer this question will be Ms. Pritchard. What perspective do you bring that differentiates you from the other candidates?
Well, I've been around the county longer than some of the furniture, so that's one of the perspectives. I know the county. I've been working it for 20 years. 25 different departments, 1,200 people, $250 million budget. It takes a long time to learn the county. And if you have connections with staff, then you've got an inside ability to find out what the experts need to let us all know. Working in the county government is my strongest asset. And also being born and raised in Woodland and knowing the rural areas and knowing our community, that's also a strong asset. And today, we have to make sure that we listen to all voices. And I think that's one of the things that's been lacking. And I am boots on the ground as a supervisor's deputy, where I listen to the people. And all voices need to be heard. And I want to bring those more to the table.
Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, what perspective do you bring that differentiates you from the other candidates?
Thank you for the question. I'm very excited to be here once again running for county supervisor. I last ran in 2024, secured nearly 46% of the vote, running against high-level names. And I really do have a passion for serving this community. I'm open to new ideas. I bring a fresh perspective. I have served on the Woodland City Council and our state legislature. I'm an Army combat veteran who served overseas and is still currently working with veterans and their families. So I get to hear a variety of problems. I have gotten the opportunity to travel to our rural areas throughout California, and I know how to go to our community members, to their communities, to their door to find out what is wrong. A lot of the things that folks shared with me out in the community was how many promises have been made to them that haven't been kept. And that has been the biggest frustration. For me, as a council member and mayor, I held an open door. I'm the daughter of immigrant farm workers. I am the oldest of 6, and I just want to thank my beautiful husband for helping me with this, as I see him sitting in the audience. But I am the oldest of 6, helped raise my brothers and sisters and my 8 beautiful nieces and 3 nephews here in town. And so I bring that multifaceted approach, and we'll be working hard for this community and holding folks accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vega, what perspective do you bring that differentiates you from the other candidates?
Thank you. I'm the only candidate in this race that has a track record of delivering results as an elected leader. I ran 2 campaigns and successfully won the vote of the Woodland City Council District 5. And throughout those years, I worked really hard to ensure that everybody's represented, that people like me, who are immigrants, who came to this country with the dream of having a better life, have a chance at working and getting an education and raising a family. The experience that I bring is not only my lived experience, but also the experience I hear from being at school, whether it be the Dingle playground with my daughter, or at Pioneer High when my son was a student during the shutdown. And dealing with the challenges of being a 2-parent household with both working 2 jobs, and seeing that the challenges are not just within the city, they're throughout the county, and also are concerning to all of the generations here. That experience and the trust is going to help me hit the ground running on day 1. I have the support of a majority of the supervisors that are currently seated, and also my council colleagues. And that's because I've served with them. They know me, and they know I will get the job done.
Thank you. The next audience question, question 3, and we'll start with Ms. Rodriguez. What steps will you take to ensure affordable housing in Yolo County?
Absolutely. I will first lean into our jurisdictions to ensure that their general plans, as well as ours, has been delivering on the results they promised. So what I mentioned earlier, in building housing here, in Woodland and any other part, we focus largely on infill. And when we think about developing more, right, outside or considering potentially building in our rural areas, which I understand there's some housing planned out there, and UC Davis is building student housing, and we have brought up farm worker housing. So when I think about providing more affordable housing, is looking at where are we as far as our numbers, but at the same time, how are we meeting the services and the needs of our community? So in that we're going to build more housing, that we can ensure that we bring in a middle school, we bring in a fire station, we provide opportunities for folks to have that walkability to their neighborhood grocery stores. So it is a larger plan, and we do need to work together and look and mirror other communities out there that can help us come up with more ideas for our county. We've done a really great job here in Yolo County at providing infill housing, including different size units for our seniors in town, including options for affordability, so that folks here provide attainability, are able to attain housing. I'm going to wrap up about in time, but for our homeless, we do need to have the opportunity to allow folks to, I understand, keep their shelter, their pets with them when they enter shelters, and provide transitional services. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vega, what steps will you take to ensure affordable housing in Yolo County?
I'm proud of the work that I've done on the city council. We've brought affordable units through projects that are in the core of Woodland, additionally investments in the East Beamer shelter that provides a continuum. I mentioned continuum of housing earlier in my question, the question that I answered. The continuum is important because we want people to be able to enter the housing at any level, whether they're first-time home buyers, or maybe they need respite, they need shelter, and they need to be able to be supported so they can get into permanent supportive housing. The senior housing availability is one that I recently was speaking to a woman resident here that works for the library, and she was sharing with me that she's able to scrape by to afford to rent an apartment here. Her children cannot. And that really is a problem. And we have people who have worked and lived in this community, and they are thinking about retiring, and they don't know if they're going to be able to afford a place to rent. That's a problem. So I'll continue to support the cities. So the cities are doing a good job at infill development, and there's still more that needs to be done. So this is a county problem that starts with working with the cities, ensuring that infill development is done before we explore additional opportunities for development.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchard, what steps will you take to ensure affordable housing in Yolo County?
There's no doubt that housing is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, but to clear up any misunderstanding, working family housing is not the purview of Yolo County. That is the jurisdiction of the cities. Housing is one of our biggest challenges, but at the county level, our role is to work with our cities, but also to look at where we can support solutions in the unincorporated areas. According to the general plan, the only place that we can do housing development for working families is in Esparta, but they have a lot of boundaries and regulations that really limit the ability to develop there. We also have to look at workforce housing and farm worker housing. We need to look at ways to support farmers who are willing to provide housing on their properties while making sure we do it responsibly and with the right safeguards in place. It also means reducing barriers where we can, supporting infill development, and making sure we are using the land we already have more effectively. The county takes care of low income, very low income, and housing for the homeless. Those are the things that we concentrate on, and I will work steadily to make sure that we do all that we can for it.
Question 4 from the audience. We're going to start with Ms. Vega. What needs to be improved in the county's care for our homeless population?
I think the priority is coordination of services. So I mentioned earlier that money isn't always a solution. A lot of times there has been significant amount of money spent, but there's a lack of coordination. So to be able to help an individual or a family get out of housing, there needs to be one, access when they need it to respite services, and then have the wraparound services at the time that they need it so they can continue in their recovery, whatever stage of their life there is. And that, it could be as simple as ensuring that there's a case manager available within 8 hours of somebody identifying that they need help and they're willing to need help. It's providing things like a computer so that somebody can apply for an ID or apply for a job. These aren't insurmountable solutions. It's just a matter of looking at who the individual or the individuals that are needing the services and bringing government to them versus expecting them to bounce back and forth to find out the services that they need. Coordination, timely coordination is what is absolutely necessary and we need to do.
Ms. Pritchard, what needs to be improved in the county's care for our homeless population?
Homelessness, again, it's another one of our complex issues, and there's no single solution. I believe I'm the only person working at the Board of Supervisors as staff that has ever participated in a point-in-time count. So I have actually gone out and I have met the homeless where they live. I've worked steadily with our Director of Fourth and Hope in their reorg and any supplies and needs that they have. In talking to our Chief of Police, he tells me that the main thing is alcohol and substance abuse treatment. That is the way that we will help the homeless the best. We can get them into treatment and then we get them into housing. The problem is it's always a funding situation, and we are going to have to work steadily with our cities to be able to make the most impact on the homeless. We need to continue to work with our cities, our nonprofits, and our service providers to coordinate our efforts. So to make sure that once our homeless gets into treatment, then we can get them into stable housing.
Ms. Rodriguez, what needs to be improved in the county's care for our homeless population?
Yes, we need to make sure that our shelters are well equipped and that the policies match the needs of our homeless. First and foremost, when we're talking about bringing them off the street, like I mentioned earlier, something that I've heard quite a bit along the way is that our shelters a lot of times or at all don't allow pets to be brought into homeless shelters. And the reality is that pets happen to be the only family that our homeless have. So I think that's a rather quick fix. It's not, right, bigger picture is not an easy solution out there, but I know that we can make that piece happen at least. We need to continue to work on transition and recovery services with the help of our counselors, but we have to make sure that we are well staffed at the county level, providing the substance abuse recovery treatments also requires more staffing as well. And we need to look at the bigger picture in providing skills training in the long run, offering workforce opportunities, and coordination with other organizations when they're doing their own point-in-time count. I have learned that it's not always the same from one city to another, where you have visual counts and you have actual physical recovery, making sure that we are actually finding the homeless, the homeless individual. And so for that, we need to get on the same page as jurisdictions to be able to make change happen.
August question number 5, moving right along here. We've mentioned that money is required for a lot of the services many of each of you candidates have spoken about. Are there sources of revenue for sources of revenue we should be accessing but are not? First candidate to answer, Ms. Pritchard.
Well, the county right now is looking at every resource that they can find. I think right now what we need to do is we have to take a deep dive and go through all of our departments to see if there are untapped resources. The problem is that people say, well, just go get grants. Well, the grants aren't available. We don't have a lot of options right now for resources, unfortunately. I do believe that one way, and this will make me very unpopular, but at one point we were at 95% of the salaries for the county. We did an equity increase a couple of years ago, and we brought it up to 100%. I know that staff will much rather take a little bit of haircut and maybe go back closer to 95 than lose their jobs. And so that is one thing that maybe that we can do, including looking at deep dives within our departments to see if we can find more resources. But at this point, I think it would be better if we could cut expenses and cut salaries a little bit, just a little bit, so we can keep our workforce.
Ms. Rodriguez, are there sources of revenue that we should be accessing but are not?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think about the help that we can bring in from our nonprofits. However, they're also strained on their budget as well, right? I participate in our Rotary here in town. I'm part of Meals on Wheels. Folks that are also out there looking at what their budget forecast looks like, what it is that they're going to get additional funding, is their grant money going to come in on time? And so when I think of our county and how it is we're operating, I think about how well we're providing services and how much more we can do to strengthen our infrastructure. So when we're debating on whether or not to cut positions, is it, are we meeting the needs of our community out there? Are we walking into a county department where we feel pride and a sense of we're going to be taken care of when we walk into this department, and I'm going to receive the same information, right, and the correct information when I go in. And so for me, it's about taking a dive into each department, looking at what is operating efficiently and effectively before assessing where it is that we need to make cuts. And we need to come in stronger and hold our department leads accountable for the areas where we need to provide more training and more opportunities for advancement where folks are meeting the needs. But yeah, it's a difficult conversation, and I'm open to looking for sources. Thank you.
Ms. Vega, are there sources of revenue we should be accessing but are not?
I think there's always an opportunity to access and pursue grants with our state government. So we're a rural community, and the state has worked really hard to identify resources that are available for rural communities. So that's something that we should continue to look at. The federal government, we can, but it's unlikely that we're going to get additional revenue. So I agree with the candidates mentioned that families are tightening their belts at home as affordability becomes an issue and everything is increasing. Families are having to cut costs, look at things that they don't need that aren't essential, and that's something that the county has to do as well. The community demands and expects us to be good stewards of the public dollar, and that means looking at reducing the administrative burden on the back end of the government delivery systems, is connecting the dots and behind the scenes so that services can be delivered and maintained to the community. So we need to look at innovation, we need to look at how do we implement AI to do things more efficiently, reduce the administrative burden, and still meet the needs of our community members.
We have 2 more audience questions before we move on to closing statements. So this, the candidate first to answer this audience question 6 is Ms. Rodriguez, and it's similar to the other question. How would you fund the county's 2030 climate action and adaptation plan?
The climate action and adaptation plan. Yes, I mean, much like other areas, our health and human services piece of the budget is the largest chunk of our budget, followed by our public safety services. Then you have community services, which a lot of environmental areas fall into, and then you have the administration piece of the county. So with that, we're going to need to lean into environmental leaders out there. I know that there's, folks up there in higher places that have the money to help us make this happen. Right now, the political climate is very intense at the state and federal level, which, I think we're all looking forward to June 2nd to kind of clear out that landscape and then look into what organizations can we tap into. Because it's not something easy to do, as we know, with the current budget deficit, which started at 40 million and now is at 35 million. And then, looking at the Sparta explosion, right, potentially looking at the need for more funding in the event that we see a lawsuit. And so this isn't an easy question to answer. However, I'm committed to working with our environmental partners to make something happen.
Thank you. Ms. Vega, how would you fund the county's 2030 climate action and adaptation plan?
So as a Woodland City Council member, I've represented Woodland on the Sacramento Area Council of Governments and also on the Yolo Transportation District. I've played a critical role in bringing forth projects that are focused on achieving this plan. So something that's really important, and one of the things that I've learned being a council member, serving in regional boards, that we have to have a strong representative that has the experience, because we're going after funds these are competitive funds, competitive grants to meet our climate needs here in Yolo County. So that is where I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot, and I've developed the experience and have the trust of regional leaders, because I am able to understand and navigate some of the complexities and bringing forth competitive projects. So we have to tap into those regional dollars that we will compete with other communities, and that means having strong regular representation on these regional boards. And then also tapping into the philanthropy of the community. There's a lot of people here locally that are willing to invest some of their wealth in helping the community. So it's going to take all of us coming together.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchard, how would you fund the county's 2030 climate action and adaptation plan?
Well, the problem is funding, and we've got an issue where we're trying to cut expenses. We have a very ambitious 2030 climate action plan. And at one time we thought that we could meet it. Now we realize that we may have to push it out several years. And we're going to have to possibly look at even 10 more years of doing that. One of the things that the county has done is they've been cutting expenses. So maybe we can't fund, but we've been cutting expenses so that we can make our mandates for the climate action plan possible. One of the things that we did, we thought we were going to be able to turn the fleet all into electric by 2030. Now what we've decided to do is that we'll use the life of the vehicles first, and then we'll rotate in. And those are the types of things that we can stretch funds. Being able to find funding, even on the regional level, is going to be extremely difficult. And so the best thing that we can do is to try to make sure that we utilize what we can over a period of time so that we can meet our goals for climate, but also stay within budget.
Thank you. For the final audience question, Ms. Vega, you'll go first. Following the Esparto fireworks explosion, what actions should the county take to prevent similar incidents and ensure regulations are consistently enforced?
Thank you. My heart breaks for the victims and their families. I can't imagine being the mother who's waiting to hear about her children and what happened. That should have never happened. I'm grateful for the grand jury report that outlined what happened and the systematic failures that happened. And we have to do better. So we have now awareness. We know where the system failed and it resulted in deaths. We have to take a look at that report and we have to come together and come up with actions. This wasn't one individual, it was a systematic failure. And we owe it to the community, to the victims, to their families, to take action so this never happens again.
Ms. Pritchard, following the Esparto fireworks explosion, what actions should the county take to prevent similar incidents and ensure regulations are consistently enforced?
Well, I totally agree with Ms. Vega on this. 7 people lost their lives, and that is what we have to always keep in mind in every decision we make from now on. We cannot ever let this happen again. And one of the things that we can do is we need to have a reorganization of our Office of Emergency Services. We need to bring our firefighters in to make a regional plan to make sure that our areas are safe. We also need to work with our building department so that we have proper inspections and make sure that every building that we have in the rural areas is safe. This is an active investigation. We don't have the answers yet, but the bottom line is that we owe a debt to the 7 people that lost their lives and the people that they left behind to make sure this never happens again.
Ms. Rodriguez, following the Esparto fireworks explosion, what action should the county take to prevent similar incidents and ensure regulations are consistently enforced?
First, I'm so sorry to the families who lost loved ones, to the folks in Esparto who suffered from the impacts and they're still looking at, what remediation is out there for them. I feel the very first thing that needs to happen is that, as supervisors, we need to have an assessment conducted of our districts. Because the grand jury report reported, right, something we can't deny is that there was no oversight, there was no governing of this area, right? We have 5 supervisors in the county, right? And we are each tasked with making sure that we take care of our respective districts. And so the governance level there failed, and it is a lesson, and there are folks out there who are frustrated who feel that we haven't, held folks accountable, or that we're not really, connecting with the community and talking about the issues so that we can, go through the healing process. With that said, we need to revise our codes. I understand that we have codes out there that date back to the 70s. That shouldn't happen, folks, right? Better coordination with our departments, absolutely. Making sure that we are reviewing permits and that folks are following the law, and that there are, there's some criteria we need to meet at the state level as well when these permits are being renewed. And so with that, thank you.
Okay, that's all for the audience questions. We're now going to move on to opening statements. I'll remind you of the opening statement. Closing statements. We're not starting this over. I'll remind you that the closing statements will be 1.5 minutes, 1 minute 30 seconds for each candidate, In the interest of fairness, we will first start with the candidate who made their opening statement last. So we will start with Ms. Vega.
Well, once again, I am very grateful to the League of Women and Voters for putting on this forum. I am not just this forum, but everything they do in the community to ensure that our democracy is preserved. It is crazy out there. Here in Yolo County, we have organizations like the League that work very closely to ensure that we can have these debates, these forums, that we have opportunities to access our candidates. I am so proud of having served and continuing to serve upon the Woodland City Council. I have learned a lot. It has been the most rewarding and most difficult job that I've ever had. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I'm really proud of having been effective in building trust with my colleagues and our governing boards in the county. And that's important because we've served on the dais together, we've looked at challenges, we've sat together, we've served on subcommittees, and they have learned who I am, how I show up. I say I'm going to do something and I show up, I do the research and I do the work. I'm here to do the right thing, and I will always approach things from a perspective of who are we trying to serve, and when we make a decision, who is it gonna impact disproportionately? I'm proud to have the support of my colleagues and a majority of the board of supervisors, and I am proud to be able to point at the real results that I've been able to deliver through my time on council that we enjoy here in the community. It would be my honor to have your vote. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, League of Women Voters. Appreciate all the exchange of information leading up to this very moment and the work you're going to continue to do. I come here, folks, because I want change in our county, and I want to make sure that our communities can keep representation at all levels of government. I believe in accountability. I have met a lot of you and your families at the door and heard directly from you on your concerns. All right. We want to make sure that the promises that are made to us are kept, but that we're also there as representatives to work hard for you, that we're showing up to the meetings, right? That we're doing our research, that we're out there in person. I, as a former council member and mayor, had the opportunity to work on things like community policing, look at opportunities on how to improve trust in our community, all right? Making sure that we hit pause when necessary so that our communities feel safe. I supported youth and senior programming and made sure to advocate at the table, and when something was wrong, I stepped in. So when we're looking at our I-5 and 113 connector that was threatened to be taken off the list by Caltrans, we said no way. And we're still waiting for that connector because we need to improve our transportation system here in the county. So what you have for me is change and good change, someone that's willing to work hard for you and your families. And I hope to continue to meet you at your door and having those conversations on the phone. And as I like to say, let's have those conversations. The good ones, the tough ones. We need to be willing to step up and to make sure that you are all represented. No matter the outcome, we need to go through this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchard.
Well, I will stand for this one. My old knees will try to handle it a little bit. The greatest privilege that I have had in my professional career in the last 20 years is serving the people of the 3rd District. I have had the honor of helping people every single day, and I want to continue to do that. I know how the county works, I know its people, and I know its needs. And I want to say this, that for all intents and purposes, I have had 20 years of on-the-job training to be a supervisor. I'm ready to lead. I'm ready to step into the role. And I know that I will be a good supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in a round of applause for the candidates. In addition to candidate forum, the League of Women Voters sponsors Vote 411, an unbiased online voters resource created to provide in-depth information about your candidates and ballot measures. Search vote411.org on the internet and enter your address to find the candidates and measures on your ballot, as well as important election dates. Candidates post their information and responses to the questions, so you are getting information directly from them. We would like to thank Dale Dennis and his crew from Woodland TV, which is broadcasting, streaming, and recording this forum tonight. It will be available online until after the election on June 2nd. Look for the link at the Yolo County League of Women Voters website or at woodlandtv.org. We also thank the City of Woodland and the staff of this beautiful community and senior center for the use of this facility. Thank you to the candidates for coming and speaking to us tonight, and the many League of Women Voters volunteers who made this event possible. I'd also like to thank you, the audience, for your respectful attention and thoughtful questions. Your informed participation is critical to our democracy. To learn more about the League of Women Voters and join us, please visit our website. Thank you to our audience here in Woodland and those viewing online tonight. You may check the tables in the hall for the candidates' campaign information as needed. Thank you.
Yours are pretty quick.